So I covered a bit of this story, the early unfoldings of this story, a couple days ago, and I promised that if any more crazy stuff happened in regards to it, I would give you all updates. I hoped that I would never end up having any updates to give you. Unfortunately, I have updates for you all. It's gotten worse. Donald Trump is in the process of boiling the frog, so to say, on taking over the District of Columbia, Washington, D.C. He's done it in a variety of ways, particularly by engaging in policy over the head of the mayor of D.C., who has, for a while, been fairly lax on criticizing him and has just kind of kept quiet because she didn't, I assume, want to lose her position that she was elected to by a fascist president who's decided you don't get to be here anymore. However, now she's calling him out because Trump has escalated things. He's gone from reinstating Confederate statues that were torn down back in 2020 to now claiming that he is going to be sending Secret Service alongside National Guard onto the streets of DC to perform, and I quote, a cleanup. He went on a rant about how the streets of DC, he claimed very falsely, like this might be one of the greatest examples of like the doublespeak lies of the 1984 Orwellian takeover that is Donald Trump's presidency, where like the truth means nothing. We're changing reality to be whatever the people in power decide is most convenient, that kind of thing. Donald Trump claimed that DC is the highest, is the violent crime capital of the world. I kid you not. In Trump's statement where he announces he's basically calling martial law on DC and taking it over using military force, he claimed that he's doing it because Washington, D.C. has the most crime of any city on the planet. And then proceeds to say that we are going to get the filth off the streets, and proceeds to list homeless people, drug addicts, and maniacs. So, and not only this, but he is currently also moving to oust the mayor of DC from her position. Basically meaning that Trump would, in the future, in the very near future, will not only be the president, but will also be the mayor of DC. Meaning that, for all intents and purposes, Trump will basically just be the king of that little tract of land, and that's just where they're going to start. Ousting opposing state leaders and making the currently sitting friendly Republican leaders into basically lords of Trump's kingdom seems to be the plan. And it's getting kind of crazy. I've actually got a Brian Tyler Cohen video here talking about the DC takeover and reviewing the response from the mayor of DC. Let's take a look. We love us some Brian Tyler Cohen. He makes good content. Go check him out.
Down, Glenn, of course, we are following the major news that Donald Trump has deployed the National Guard to Washington, D.C., obviously a harbinger of things to come more broadly across the nation. But I want to put a tweet from Ken Delanian from MSNBC right up here on the screen. The news out of the D.C. mayor's press conference is that her lawyers apparently do not believe they have grounds to challenge President Trump's declaration of a D.C. crime emergency. The city appears to be surrendering to a federal takeover of its police department. So first and foremost, Glenn,
That's right. Trump has taken over DC's police department, too. I completely forgot about that detail. He's not just mobilizing the National Guard. He's also, this hasn't been mentioned, he's deploying Secret Service onto the streets to assist he has taken over the local PD. Trump now commands the local PD. He has taken control of the police department of DC from the mayor, and they now answer to him. A full-on coup from the top down. And on top of that, the Secret Service will be on the street, quote-unquote, assisting these officers as they engage in what he basically described martial law. So he's essentially declaring martial law in D.C. without actually doing so, and heavily implied this is going to be the new permanent state of affairs in the city. or in the district, I guess. The district/city. So the Secret Service is going to be secret police, essentially? Yeah. Not even essentially, literally. Yeah, the Secret Service are going to become the secret police of Washington, D.C.
Can you speak on the fact that a city is not able to mount a defense from a federal takeover of the US government? It seems so wholly antithetical to the basic constitutional structure of this country. Can I just have your general reaction to what we've just read?
Brian, I didn't see that one coming. And when I say that one, I didn't think Mayor Bowser and the D.C. city government, which has fought so hard for home.
You'd really think that she'd pull out some, like, spin moves or something like that with a last name like that, you know? Like, Bowser's tough. You know, Bowser protects that flag, protects that victory goal like a motherfucker. Never gives up, all right? But every victory you get over Bowser is eked out against all odds. This woman, unfortunately, has not lived up to the name of Bowser, in my opinion. Because I played a bit of Super Mario Maker where they put Bowser at the end of the levels, and oh my god, when it's a hard level and they put a Bowser fight at the end, it's like, oh, just fucking kill me, dude. Yeah, the kidnapping turtle dude.
Rule to be able to, govern itself, and home rule has been in place now for decades. I didn't think in a million years they would just lay down and let the Trump administration walk all over them, including...
To be fair, though, the implied alternative is that the National Guard will execute them. Like that is more or less what Trump implied, is if you oppose Trump in his takeover of DC, you're now a criminal, you're part of the filth, and you might just be shot. That's why he's deploying fully armed military dudes onto the street. Like, it's meant to intimidate and at least give the idea that they might kill you if you oppose Trump's takeover. Like, when you have the president who is, best case scenario, will sue you for everything you have if you upset him. Worst case scenario might have you Epsteined. Then yeah, you're probably not going to push back too much against him when you have absolutely zero leverage. It's not that crazy that she just bent over and let him take the city.
Seizing control of the Washington, D.C. Metropolitan Police Department. Those are the city cops. They work for the city of the District of Columbia, not the federal government. So I will say that sending National Guard troops into the streets of Washington, D.C., as horrific as that is, it does seem that the president has the authority to do that. He can't send troops into the 50 states without the governor's buy-in. Of course, we know he also violated that law as well out in California, but he actually does seem to be lawfully entitled to send National Guard troops into D.C. because D.C. is not a state. It doesn't have a governor. And the prevailing wisdom in the legal authority seems to suggest that, yeah, if the president wants to activate the National Guard and send them into the streets of D.C., he can. But the really surprising part is his seizing control of the local law enforcement organization, the Metropolitan Police Department. And he has to be able to, in a straight-faced way, claim a state of emergency in order to do that. And I thought, for sure, Mayor Bowser would push back. I assumed that there were going to be motions for...
Do we end up seeing the clip of Trump in this video? No, we don't. Okay, then I'm going to bring it up myself because it is... we need to watch it. Like, it's a borderline Hitler speech. Like, Trump goes full Hitler in this one. Trump DC speech. Yeah, I think this is it. He goes full Nazi here, just full Hitler.
I've been up here a lot. I've never seen a crowd like this. I think we need a ballroom, and that's happening. It's going to be a beautiful ballroom. This is really...
He loves attention. It's not just that he loves attention. He loves when people acknowledge that he's getting a lot of attention. I think that's his favorite thing. Oh my god, there's a face. The cringe. The cringing. The pretending not to be, but also actively cringing. And then you've got him putting his face down so that the crowd and the cameras can't see him cringing. Because they've been around Trump so much, they know that how much of an egotistical, attention-seeking maniac he is. They have to. And so when he says that, they're all thinking what I just said and what we're all thinking when we hear that. And they have to try and not to show it in their faces that they're thinking that on stage. Kash Patel's face tells so much in every photo he's in. That's true. And mind you, this is the biggest Trump glazer there is. I don't know if he believes any of his own, like, bullshit. I'm guessing he doesn't. I think he's actually, like, a top-tier pro-grifter who knows what ring to kiss and when, and who to, like, spread his cheeks for and when. And that's how he's gotten to the point that he's at now. But, like, I don't think he's not cringing at what Trump just said.
Really, a lot of people, most I've ever seen in this room. And we're here for a very serious purpose, Something's out of control, but we're going to put it in control very quickly like we did on the southern border. I'm announcing a historic action to rescue our nation's capital from crime, bloodshed, bedlam, and squalor, and worse. This is Liberation Day in D.C., and we're going to take our capital back. We're taking it back.
Keep in mind, by the way, violent crime in particular, though this applies to all crime, is at an all-time low currently. Particularly violent crime is at an all-time low at this very moment. Violent crime in America, there's never been less of it than there is right now today. And yet apparently it's such a catastrophic, massive issue, Trump has decided that it's necessary to declare a state of emergency. Assuming you believe that Trump is an honest individual who isn't seeking power for the sake of holding power. Because that's what's happening here. Trump is making up a non-existent crisis and using it as justification to take over DC. And it's a two birds with one stone situation. Either you ignore this situation or divert some attention from it in order to continue to hammer home his biggest weakness being the Epstein files and let him get away with this more or less, or you refocus onto this and give him no doubt exactly what he wants, which is for the media to stop talking about the Epstein files. Or the fact, mind you, that Trump just gave Ghislaine Maxwell a cushy new, high-quality, nicer cell in Texas in exchange for exonerating Trump. She claimed that she has no knowledge of Trump doing anything inappropriate with Epstein after she was transferred to a nicer prison cell due to Trump's action. So, like, literally, they bribed Ghislaine Maxwell with gifts, more or less, into exonerating Trump. And no doubt it came alongside the threat of herself being Epstein. Remember, Trump was president when Epstein was killed in prison, so if he could Epstein, he could Epstein Ghislaine, if that makes sense.
Under the authorities vested in me as the President of the United States, I'm officially invoking Section 740 of the District of Columbia Home Rule Act. You know what that is? And placing the D.C. Metropolitan Police Department under direct federal control, and you'll be meeting the people that will be directly involved with that. Very good people, but they're tough, and they know what's happening, and they've done it before. In addition, I'm deploying the National Guard to help reestablish law, order, and public safety in Washington, D.C., and they're going to be allowed to do their job properly. And you people are victims of it, too. You know, you're reporters, and I understand a lot of you tend to be on the liberal side, but you don't want to get mugged and raped and shot and killed.
These things happen today less than they ever have in American history.
And you all know people and friends of yours that happened. And so you can be any...
Literally, like 10 years ago, the most common MAGA talking point was that feminists are insane for claiming that 1 in 3 or 1 in 4, I forget which, women will experience sexual assault or rape at some point in their life, which is honestly, as much as people even on the left have claimed that was a misinterpreted statistic, that statistic is probably true, in all honesty. If we're considering like a groping or a really uncomfortable sort of like advance that leaves you feeling cornered as part of that, that's literally every woman, if not most women. So like, it's funny how conservatives, regardless though, the right was claiming that feminists were crazy and making up statistics or over-exaggerating the amount of women that are victimized. But all of a sudden, when the culture war narratives changed, the right is all of a sudden talking about the rates at which women are sexually assaulted or violated all the time. Never in the context of wanting to promote consent, mind you. They hate the idea of consent. They hate teaching consent. They hate valuing consent. They I believe it was Matt Walsh that called the left a consent cult, which might be the rapiest thing anyone's ever said without just outright threatening to rape someone. That might be the rapiest thing ever said besides that. And so that was his claim, that the left is a cult of consent. And so, yeah, the idea of these concepts was nothing the right gave a fuck about. Think like the WNBA or women's softball, women's basketball, anything like that, women's boxing. Any of these women-dominated sports or the women's leagues of these sports, they did not give a fuck about. It was a culture war point to talk about how useless these leagues were, that no one watched them, and to laugh at how they pulled very record low viewership compared to the male leagues. Like the right loved to dog on female sports for this reason. Now all of a sudden, advocating for the integrity of women's sports is like their big thing. They're constantly talking about it. They're pretending like they give a fuck about it. In the same way, 10 years ago, they were talking about how borderline rape isn't real, is more or less summarizing their claims 10 years ago when feminism was the enemy. And now that it's like immigrants and like supposed sexual predator gay people, now they're all virtue signaling about how they're protecting women. 10 years ago, their side of the culture war was the anti-protecting women side. The side claiming that feminists and women were just bitching about nothing, more or less. So, they truly hold no principles. Just a reminder.
Anything you want, but you want to have safety in the streets. You want to be able to leave your apartment or your house where you live and feel safe and go into a store to buy a newspaper or buy something. And you don't have that now. The murder rate in Washington today is higher than that of Bogota, Colombia, Mexico City, some of the places that you hear about as being the worst places on earth. Much higher. This is much higher. The number of...
As you can imagine, the fact checkers went crazy with this one, just saying, so Trump's just overtly and almost certainly knowingly lying? DC's not even the most violent American city. Like, every resident of Detroit and St. Louis is watching this and going, bull fucking shit. The second they hear him say that. Like, can you imagine living in East St. Louis and hearing Trump say this, and then you hear 5 gunshots outside, like a block away? You know, like, literally delusional, out of touch statement, blatant lie that anyone who's been to one of the actual most dangerous cities in America or lives in one of the most dangerous cities in America will immediately be able to clock, because there's no fucking way, even not having to look into any data, just knowing America, there's no way DC is the violent crime capital of America. There's no way. There are several cities that would come to mind way sooner to any American. DC would not be the top of anyone's list.
Of car thefts has doubled over the past 5 years, and the number of carjackings has more than tripled. Murders in 2023 reached the highest rate probably ever. They say 25 years, but they don't know what that means because
when Trump's very good at lying, like, through his teeth, like having a straight face and lying about something, stating it as facts. You know Trump's really stretching the truth or lying when he says probably, when making what he wants to be a believed factual statement. When like he wants to blatantly lie and say it's the highest it's ever been, but he can't because it's not true. He knows it's not true, and I guess he couldn't follow through on the lie on that one, and so he said probably. So At worst, people could call him out for being incorrect. Anyway, I'll play a little bit more of this clip, but he goes on for 30 minutes, just full-on Hitler speech.
It just goes back 25 years. Can't be worse. Our capital city has been overtaken by violent gangs and bloodthirsty criminals, roving mobs of wild youth, drugged-out maniacs and homeless people, and we're not going to let it.
I like how homeless people are like part of the crowd of like dangerous, bloodthirsty maniacs. You know, gotta demonize people who dare to have nowhere to live.
Happen anymore. We're not going to take it. Yeah, just like we did on our southern border. Nobody comes through our southern border anymore. 3 months in a row, we had zero. I don't know if that's right, but the people that do the work, it's a very liberal group of people, actually, and they actually said zero for the last 3 months. Nobody thought a thing like that was possible. And, you know, when you say take a look at numbers, I just saw some charts.
He's clearly got a blood clot working its way through his brainstem currently, because did any of the last 2 minutes of his talking make any sense to you guys? I think the dementia's taking him. It's happening. You guys want to talk about Sleepy Joe? Talk about Sleepy Don. Anyway, I needed to emphasize how Hitler-esque his speech was as we go into this the next chunk of this video.
Temporary restraining orders and preliminary injunctions being, drafted as we speak and filed probably by close of business today. And yet, according to Ken Delanian's tweet or post, that seems not to be the case. So there are certainly some takeaways. Now, Brian, that doesn't mean that the MPD's police union won't file a challenge. I don't really know how it works when one day you're working for the D.C. city government and your check is being cut by the D.C. city government, and now you're under federal control. Does that make you a federal employee? Does that impact by whom you're paid? Does it impact your benefits? Does it impact your work assignments? I mean, all of this, I think, is a recipe for disaster. But here's another important takeaway. And when I was watching the press conference where, the director of the FBI, Kash Patel, was boasting and bragging about how, crime is down on all fronts, violent crime is down, and yet Donald...
once again, they will go literally one day from saying there's crime's never been lower to the next day claiming crime's never been higher. And the reason they'll lie and flip up their positions so blatantly on a day-to-day basis is because their objectives change on a day-to-day basis. One day it might be about defending Trump's handling of crime. And it's like, no. Crime is better off than it's ever been. If the media is talking about there being like a crime problem under Trump or claims that Trump's not cracking down on violent crime hard enough, all of them will claim that crime's never been lower, because their objective is to dissuade criticism from Trump. If Trump the next day decides it's time to take over D.C., and their excuse is going to be skyrocketing record-high crime, they will 180 the next day, because the objective has gone from defending Trump's handling of being hard on crime to defending Trump's now being arguably too hard on crime, which in reality is just a fascist takeover. He's not being hard on crime. He's a felon. He's being a criminal currently. But they will flip because the objective is always to defend Trump. And sometimes you have to say opposite things and believe opposite things publicly in order to defend him. Because they are a party built on nothing but saying what must be said, saying the lies that have to be said to convince people to vote you into power. That's why so many conservatives love Trump and the Republicans. They love everything Trump and the Republicans have to say because Trump and the Republicans say what they want to hear. And it's not a case of coincidence, it's by intent. They identified the most radical, dedicated group of people in America in politics, niched themselves into gaining that entire group's 100% support, and everything else fell into line from there. Trump supporters will never, ever shut the fuck up about Trump, and they knew that would be the case if they got the radical right-wing, anti-gay, homophobic, Nazi, transphobic, woman-hating incels on board, if they got the gamers on board, the forum posters on board, the shit posters on board, the commentators on board, the streamers on board, the podcasters on board, those people that never shut the fuck up about anything, if they could get them on board the Trump train, they would never shut the fuck up about how great Trump is. And that was the entire goal. They say whatever they have to do to please those people. Because once they're pleased, they've done all they need to do.
Trump in the next breath is announcing a state of emergency because crime is out of control.
Right.
You know, these are the kind of things you would think would give rise to some pretty consequential legal challenges. But here's what people need to now keep in mind. Every single crime that is committed in Washington, D.C. from today moving forward is on the hands and on the head of the Trump administration. And let's face it, at this press conference, they announced crime stops today. Yeah, well, let's hold them to that and see if crime actually stops today in the District of Columbia.
Well, Glenn, of course, you must know that
Usually when you declare martial law in an area, the crime actually goes up because people are restricted. They can't go to work. They're not allowed to live their daily lives as they want to. They get stir crazy. You throw in martial law and a heat wave, you got a recipe for a riot, like a citywide riot.
if crime goes down, then Trump gets credit, but if crime goes up, then Trump doesn't deserve any of the credit. That would be Joe Biden's crime.
Yeah, isn't it wonderful that we've gone from a country where a president said, the buck stops with me, to a president who says, I don't take any responsibility at all?
Yeah. Glenn, it's worth asking here, is this a capitulation by the mayor of Washington, D.C.? Do you think that it's well-founded for her not to try and seek injunctions or temporary restraining orders? I mean, what can we read into the decision not to fight this thing with the full force? Or is it just the fact that she thinks it would be a doomed effort by virtue of the fact that maybe there's not enough legal standing for her to actually fight back?
The D.C. city government has a lot of really good lawyers, and I have to believe, Brian, they made a good faith assessment of not only the evidence, but the arguments that they would make in court if they wanted to oppose Donald Trump's invocation of a state of emergency in D.C. and seize control of the local police department. And they probably decided that they don't have a strong enough argument to make, and they don't want to undertake, a failed attempt to resist the president's federal takeover of the D.C. police force. So, I'm going to project good faith onto their decision and say it was a fact and law-based decision. But there are a couple other things that our viewers should keep in mind. The D.C. Home Rule Act, the law that governs emergency control of the D.C. police by the President of the United States, has some time limits to, the president's ability to retain control over the local police force. For example, it says, the law says, whenever the President of the United States determines that special conditions of an emergency nature exist, which require the use of the Metropolitan Police Force for federal purposes, he may direct the mayor to provide him, and the mayor shall provide, such services of the Metropolitan Police Force as the president may deem necessary and appropriate. But Brian, during that 48-hour time period,
Keep in mind, this is fully within the president's right. This isn't one of those situations like in the past where Trump has used the fact that there are no branches of government currently that are not in his pocket to just do things he's not supposed to do, say, without congressional support. This Congress just hands him approval for whatever he wants to do. He doesn't even consult this Congress because they'll just say yes, and he knows they will, or they'll lose their seat real damn fast. So Trump, Trump might literally eliminate districts. Like, he might just force blue states, through some sort of executive power, to merge every blue district into one big mega district, and then force every blue state to have one Congress representative to force the ultimate majority. There is no limit to what Trump will do. Don't get me wrong. In this case, though, Trump is technically, what he's doing here is within the bounds of the law. This is not one of those situations where he's just doing what he wants and no one can get in his way. However, it is clearly step one in what he has announced as his plan to take over D.C., to coup the mayor out of whatever power the mayor of D.C. has over the president, and to basically make D.C. into the president's city. This is not a good precedent to set regardless of who's in power. The idea of the president having their own city is kind of fucked. The idea of the president is supposed to be that they're the ultimate public servant. That's also supposed to be the idea behind cops, too. Public servant, the idea is that they're supposed to work for us, the law-abiding citizens of America, us taxpayers who pay their paychecks, who fill their bank accounts every pay period. They're supposed to work for us. The president's supposed to work for us. He gets paid with our tax dollars, $200K a year. And so, why the fuck are we worshiping him? Why are we worshiping someone whose job it is to keep us happy? Why are Trump supporters so brain broken and misunderstanding of the fundamental structure of the American system that they worship a guy what's the term? Unconditionally, when the entire point of American politics is to scare your guy into believing that your love and support is conditional, and that if they don't keep to those conditions, they're going to lose your support. Instead, it's full worship of Trump. He does whatever he wants, even if it's against what they voted for, and they defend it because it's Trump. At least it's not that Democrat. At least we're not admitting we were wrong to the liberals. God, they're so smug, aren't they? It's sad. It's sad to see so many Americans catch the retard bug, but what can you say? We are a country that not only doesn't value education or an understanding of the world or a lack of ignorance, but outright demonizes not being ignorant. So it shouldn't really surprise you, but I think America is due for a big swing again. We saw it during the Biden administration, a swing from left to right culturally, just as we saw a swing from right to left during Trump's last administration. America is following the pattern that goes way before that, mind you. America is due for another big pendulum swing. I'm just hoping it's sooner than it's later. Anyway, folks, if you enjoyed this segment, if you found it entertaining, enjoyable, educational, or in any way worth supporting, then please consider leaving a like and a comment down below on this video, and just a like if you're watching presently as I'm live, if you're watching it right now. Every thumbs up and every comment is very much appreciated. They go a long way to boost the channel and the algorithm, and for those that don't know, only about 10% of my fans, you guys, like my new videos, and even less like the streams. Way less than that, even, actually comment on the new videos and on the streams. Particularly on the new videos is what's important to comment on. If we can raise that percentage, YouTube's algorithm will really like it. YouTube's evaluation of a channel isn't just based on how many views or subscribers they get. It's based on how much their viewers engage. That means how many of my viewers like, how many of my viewers comment. Even if I got 100K viewers, if only 5 or 10 of them liked and commented, the next videos would not be pulling 100K views. So if you guys want to help grow the channel, then let's raise that percentage. Be the person who goes from a non-stream liker to being a liker. How are we at 155 people watching in YouTube chat and only 35 likes? Damn, we suck. Exactly what? I've given this same speech several times to the stream, and yet, like I said, the percentage persists. Only about 10% of you, no matter what I say, are ever willing to like the stream. It's sad, but it's true. Right now, 90% of you watching right now are hearing me speak and are choosing not to like the stream. It's at 92 now. Hell yeah, you guys like the stream like crazy in response to that. Weird I say 119 from my perspective. In that case, it's probably that, who was it that said that before? What? It's probably that they've been here since the start of stream and hadn't refreshed their page. That's probably why. Hell yeah. See? Hit that like button. It helps a lot. I appreciate it. You guys are the best. When you guys are the best. you guys are. You're the best. Anyway, folks, I do want to give a big shout out, though, to Rizcore for the $7 donation. Very kind of you. Says, good segs tonight. G2G, South Park Season 27 is just a documentary. It really is. It really is. But let's finish up this outro. Leave a like, leave a comment, and don't forget to subscribe. And of course, if you want to see more from me in the future on other platforms, follow my social medias linked down below. And particularly, join my fan Discord, as that is the main hub of my community and fan base. And on top of that, I host weekly watch parties, call-in streams, movie nights, or gaming events on every Friday every week. So if you don't want to miss it, then join the Discord. That's the place to be. And if you want to see more stuff from me, support the channel, help me keep the lights on and a roof above my head here at the Xander Hall studio, then please consider donating, subscribing, or gifting a sub on my website, xanderhall.com/live, or support me through YouTube, Twitch, Streamlabs, Stream Elements, Patreon, or buy some custom Xander Hall merch through the Streamlabs link down below. Regardless of how you support me though, thank you all so much for watching, as always, and have a good one.